we welcome Dr. Bala Shetty to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you. This is great to be here.
It is our pleasure to have you. How was your weekend?
Weekend was good. My wife is in India. She's been in India helping her parents.
Okay.
So I worked all weekend.
Yeah. That's what I usually do when my wife is gone.
Yeah, it worked. That's what we do, professors. We work.
Indeed.
Play a little golf.
Yes. What is your favorite superpower?
I want to be able to, I teach forecasting. This is what I primarily teach. I want to be able to see the future.
Yeah.
If I can do that 24 hours ahead, that'd be pretty cool.
That would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
I saw a theory this weekend. There's some physicist from MIT or something is suggesting like a box universe theory that suggests that the future and the past and the present all exist simultaneously. And that was a fascinating concept to me. The idea, and so what that would mean is that you can't like if you traveled that time travel is possible first, but that you can't change the past. It always exists exactly as it was, and everything is always exactly as it is. And so in a way, I guess that would mean everything is predetermined.
So much is about seeing the future.
Sure.
Right? I mean, the business is about seeing the future. Everything that we do is about the future. So it'd be nice to be able to see the future a couple of hours ahead.
Sure.
Even if I can do 2 hours.
Sure. Yeah, that'd be great. You can make a lot of money that way.
I can avoid a lot of problems too.
Sure can. Give us 60 seconds on your road to Mays.
Mays Business School. See, I grew up in India. I got my bachelor's in physics and chemistry. I loved science growing up. I got a degree in applied mathematics, a master's degree, and I worked in the Middle East for about 2 years. And came to U.S. to do my PhD in operations research, industrial engineering.
Okay.
I got a master's in operations research, industrial engineering in the U.S.
Okay.
And then while I was getting my PhD, I also taught in the business school.
Okay.
And I loved business school. I mean, although I'm an engineer by nature, but I like students in the business school. So I just joined the business school. So 1985, I came to Texas A&M. It was a very different world at that time.
Sure.
And loved the people around here. That was the attraction. There was not much of a campus here, but the people I met at Mays Business School, I said, this is the place for me. And I stayed, never looked back.
So you grew up in India. How many in your family growing up?
My mom and 3 siblings, 4 of us. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was your first job?
Well, India jobs. When I grew up, I got my bachelor's. I couldn't find a job, so my job was I was a clerk in a metal factory. That was my job. Was I was a clerk and I was the mailman. I had to go pick up the mail. I was very young at that time, and I remember my mom was so happy because I made 200 rupees. That was like $2, $3 a month.
Yeah,
that was my. I've come a long way from there. I make more than 200 rupees now.
We should all be so lucky. What was your greatest challenge as a younger person?
It was my dad died when I was 11, and my mom was never went to school. She worked in a factory after my dad died, and raising 4 children and a widow in India, that was rough. So we had a pretty rough upbringing in terms of material things, and we are in a very rough neighborhood. So it was difficult for us, especially, mom had to struggle quite a bit. The blessing was we were very good students. Education was very important to my mother, because even though she never went to school, she actually emphasized education, values, integrity quite a bit. So we grew up with good values. We always try to make good grades, so we want to make our mother happy. That was the goal, So we turned out to be very good students. That was our ticket, out of that. Yeah.
Right. When you look back on the difficulties that you experienced, other than gratitude and appreciation for what you have now, what is the most important way that shapes you?
It makes you a bit more considerate. It makes you appreciate the things that you have, appreciate the people around you. Although, I grew up very poor, along the way, I got a lot of kindness and generosity from people around me all along the way. People are very supportive, very kind. I think it makes you learn to be patient. You learn to understand what other people go through, whether it's problem financial or otherwise. So you have better appreciation for better understanding what people go through. Yeah.
I see. What's your favorite class to teach?
I teach MBAs, and I like teaching MBAs. I've taught MBAs exclusively last 25 years, actually. Okay. I teach in the professional MBA program in Houston, the executive MBA program in Houston, and the full-time MBA. I enjoy MBA students. They've got all kinds of personalities. They work hard. They want to be there, most of them. And they're hungry to learn. They put in the time most of the time, and it's a lot of fun to be with them. And they keep me on my toes. I learn virtually every semester. I learn something from them. So I have a really good time teaching MBAs. They're challenging. They can be pain. There can be pain at times, but if you know how to manage the relationship between MBAs, I think it can be a wonderful experience for us. Yeah,
I think MBAs, having been on both sides of that equation, not as a professor, but as a guest lecturer teaching, impact sessions and things like that, I feel like MBAs give you a lot of credit if they know that you're there to maximize what they're getting out of it.
Absolutely.
And if they really believe that you're there for them,
correct.
They cut you so much slack.
Yeah, they do. That's one of the things that if they know that you work hard for them and you're really committed to their success, and then you have a kind of wonderful relationship with them. So hands down, I've taught PhD students, I've taught masters, undergraduate. MBA teaching has been my thing. Yeah, always.
I feel like it's the. I was in a PhD course my last semester in the MBA program, and that academically that was one of the most challenging things I've ever done. But the MBA experience, there's something about the optimization within the MBA program and making sure that every piece of what's being taught and what's being transferred is economized and made the best it can be. And that's true from both the administrative side, it's true from the faculty side, and it's true, hopefully, from the student side as well. I think most of the time, the students really know what they're looking for.
You get instant feedback from students.
Yeah.
They're very vocal. If something's not working, they will tell you.
Sure.
They don't hesitate, and they should. That's what, we are preparing them to be executives somewhere in the company. You have to have what things are not working right. You have to be able to say that. So I like that feedback, instant feedback. I never take it personally. I mean, if there, sometimes I agree with my students, sometimes I don't. Yeah. But if there's an opportunity to deliver better value or better class, it's a good thing for everybody. So we have fun together in the class.
Any funny stories?
Not many of them. So I have a lot of them. So I had a student from the military many years ago. It's probably 20 years ago. He had just come from the military. He's probably watching this one somewhere. Yeah, and he's a big guy. I mean, he was a Marine, and he was sitting in the front row, and there was 95, 96 or 97, and I was teaching, and he would make very smart remarks, snide remarks every time. And I got so tired one day, I stood in front of him. I said, so I would stand in front of him. Every time I had to call somebody, I would call on him. Yeah, I would stand in front of him. You're such a smart aleck, let me do him. Right. After about 2 interactions, he said, I gave in. I'm sorry. I'm the military guy. And, we became very good friends socially, and he and his wife and kids, we interacted quite a bit. I've had many of those experiences in class. I had another funny story.
Oh, yeah, please.
It's a kind of long story. It also it kind of tells you the relationship in faculty and students and the Aggie network. And I laugh about this when I think about it. I had a minivan called Ford Windstar. That was a hot minivan in 2000, around 2000. Everybody wanted a Ford Windstar, and I have to get them two kids. And there was a recall on Ford Windstar. It was the head gasket was heating up and it was going to explode. So I missed the deadline for the recall. There was a recall and about a month after the deadline, I was driving with my two kids, my wife, July 4th weekend, to Dallas. And in Waco, head gasket exploded. Right. So
hopefully no one was hurt.
No one was hurt. And we all sat in the truck, the tow truck. It came back to College Station. Yeah. Went to the dealer, and he said $4,000 to fix it. I was a poor professor, right? $4,000. So I called one of my MBA students who just took a job with Ford. Yeah. She was in California. Judy, she's still there. Yeah. After somebody, I called Judy and said, Judy, so she said, Doctor, let me see what I can do. That was in the morning. In the evening, I got a call from the dealer. Asked me to bring the vehicle back. He said, I don't know how much clout you have. We got a call from the CEO of Ford's office. So bring the car back and we'll fix it. So I took it back and they fixed it free. So I called Judy. What happened, She said, well, I contacted an Aggie in Atlanta who worked for Ford. And he contacted somebody in Kansas. And finally, we got through the CEO's office. There was an Aggie who was working there. And so they decided, we'd do it free for Dr. Shetty.
All right.
The funny thing was, I got a call from the CEO's office. Nasser was out. Next day morning, got a call from CEO. I was making sure that I was well taken care of. I thought that was kind of, you get a call from the CEO's office. I'm nobody. And so that is I laugh about it, but also it's kind of tells you the power of Aggie Network.
Aggie Network.
My students do this all the time. If I hear something, I pick up the phone. So that's I think it tells you how connected Aggies are.
Absolutely. This is where I'd flash my ring for the video if I was wearing it. I don't even have it on today. But in terms of educating MBAs, where are we going next? What is the next thing?
So, MBAs are a tough market. It's a market that's a lot of great schools out there, and the students get current, relevant education. I mean, it's what is in now. I mean, we have to keep up with that. All the Michigans and MITs, they keep up with that all the time. So, I think to me, one of the weaknesses our students have, although I teach that course, some part for student body is not very good in analytics. The analytics has become a big way now. Sure. I think the education in artificial intelligence and deep learning and neural network and, that's going to be the thing for the next several years. Mm-hmm. So I think we have to kind of make sure that we prepare our students for that. As an important area, a lot of top schools are doing that now, and we ought to do that too.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I wonder a lot about how analytics is being taught at the undergraduate level, but then also even at like the high school level. Because when I was in high school, the progression was you would take Algebra 1 and then geometry and then Algebra 2 and then trig and like pre-calculus and then calculus if you wanted to. And then analytics or statistics was kind of a sort of a separate thing from the standard math path, if you will. And I feel like things are going to move in more of a statistics analytics direction, even at a younger age, because it just seems so much more applicable to most career paths than calculus is. I mean, I have all the respect in the world for calculus, but I feel like if you're going to be in a STEM field, calculus really makes sense. If you're going to be doing anything else, I feel like analytics just makes more sense.
Yeah, those backgrounds, if you catch them early enough, make sure that's part of the education, things get actually better. They can make transition better in the college. But if a lot of students never had calculus, they never had statistics, they come to and they struggle with it a little bit. But the world is changing in terms of, analytics and artificial intelligence. That's become huge in businesses. I think we need to start put serious attention to that to make our students competitive in the market.
Yeah.
And we're doing quite well, actually. We have a lot of analytics course in the MBA program right now, more so than 3-4 years ago.
Right.
But we need to continue to do that.
Yeah, we had what was Dr. Kumar's class, and I assume is the class that you're teaching now.
Teach that, yeah.
Yes, and then we had the applied predictive class, which Dr. Ketzenberg was teaching at the time.
Did you take that class?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Really got a lot out of that class. But I feel like I still don't understand machine learning very well. Neural networks and lasso and all that sort of thing.
Dr. Ketzenberg's class, you learn some of it, some of the tools. Those are the machine learning tools. There are a lot of confusion about all these terms,
Right.
But there's the tools that you learn. There's the classical machine learning tools. And we don't go into the black box. We kind of teach them pretty superficially how to use it without understanding what's in the black box. The black box is tough because to really understand the black box, you have to have a good handle on optimization and statistics and stuff. So we actually tend to, just teach them as much as they need to know. But there are a lot of very good tools because of computing power, the cloud, because of cheap memory. Things have changed so drastically in the new few years. Deep learning has become so dominant in businesses these days.
Right.
So,
What's your secret sauce as a teacher? What do you feel like makes you different?
Wear good ties now.
I didn't wear a tie today. I'm feeling
it's as you said, students have to feel like you're there for them. You're vested in them. You're dedicated to their success. When I teach, I'm theirs. I have to do research. I'm on the editorial boards. I'm in the National Academy. But when I'm teaching MBAs, they are my focus. So 24/7. So my students can call me 2:00 in the morning, which they do, some of them.
Oh, interesting.
So I want to make sure that I do my bit to give them the best education I can. And so they see that in me, I think. I think they see that Dr. Shetty is completely dedicated to us, to giving great education. And they reciprocate that through hard work. And, so for me, that's half the battle for the faculty member. Just make sure you care. Make sure you care about their success. And also understand one of the primary reasons we are here is to educate them. Although, we have, as a faculty member, we have to write papers, we have to do a lot of other things, but our very reason for being here is our students. So I think when students understand, feel that, I think you get better results from them.
Let's talk a little bit. So you just mentioned research and how that plays with the professorial vocation. What can you talk a little bit about the tension between research and teaching? And now you're kind of having been on the other side of it. How does that all play together?
It's a tough balance, actually, because I can give you one example. My colleagues and I are working on a paper on the U.S. coin supply chain. That we're looking at the mint and see if the mint can do this better. We studied their supply chain, and then we did some research and made some recommendation to the mint as to how they could do better.
Right.
It literally took, for 4 of us, 4.5 years to get that paper published. It just got accepted in a top journal.
Yeah.
It takes a long time to publish a top journal paper. University institution like Texas A&M, there's a lot of emphasis on publishing in top journals. They don't care how many publish as long as you write impactful papers. It takes a long time. So I have the luxury to spend the time with my students. I've been here for a long time. I'm a chair professor. But young faculty members, to balance good teaching and research sometimes can be really tough.
Sure.
Because it takes so much time to do research. But for me, students always came first. Although I've been a successful scholar at Mace Business School, students always came first to me. That I felt that that's where my most impact take place, where I make a difference in their education. They always came first.
I've had some amazing professors in my time. I don't think I've ever had a professor who said, you can call me at 2:00 in the morning if you need to.
And they do. I have funny stories. I had executive MBA students. They work at night, and they were working on some assignments in Houston.
Yeah.
I was sleeping, and the phone rang. It's probably 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, and student I woke up, and my wife was calling 1 o'clock in the morning. I pick up the phone, and I said, Dr. Shetty, we are here, and we have this big debate about how to approach this. We couldn't wait till tomorrow, so sorry to call you at 1 o'clock in the morning. So anyway, I talked to them, and I do have students who call me at 1 o'clock in the morning. I don't mind.
That's great. One of my favorite stories is Dr. Ramanathan, Suresh Ramanathan.
Yeah, I know Suresh well.
Taught our introductory marketing course, and it seemed like every time we did a case study,
it's a wine, right?
Wine. Yes, that was his thing for sure. But he would always come into class, and he would always say, we would talk about the case, and then at the end he would get this little smile on his face, and he would get the sense for where the class was going in terms of what we were recommending that they do for the case, and he would get this little smile on his face, and he would say, "All right, do you want to know what they did?" And we would say, "Yeah, we want to know what they did." And he would always say, "They did exactly what you said." And the company went bankrupt.
So the company did go bankrupt.
We always felt so stupid. But let's see. You've spent a lot of time traveling, and you've taught in other places as well. What do you think is the biggest difference between the American education system and other education systems? Is there a system outside the United States that's caught your eye, or a particular aspect of something they're doing somewhere else that you think is interesting?
So, I went to school in India, and I traveled. I worked in the Middle East. I actually did a sabbatical in Spain. I taught in Spain as well, in Madrid. And I taught at SMU. I taught Madrid here. Yeah. And I did a little bit of teaching at Princeton. I went to a sabbatical at Princeton three different times. Yeah. So first, there is a huge difference between the education and School of Engineering, where I taught, and business school. They are really very different. Yeah. The School of Engineering students tend to be a bit more analytical. So they're easy to teach, but they are very reserved. They won't participate. They won't ask questions. They're really bright. If you give an exam, they will ace it. But then they are not, when you teach in class, they are very reserved. Unless you call on them directly, they won't contribute. Business school students are very different. They're on the other end of the spectrum. They are talkative. They have they need airtime. They have an opinion about everything. So it's really very different contrast between teaching an engineering school, which I've taught, and also teaching a business school.
Right.
I can contrast the education system in India and here. And one of the things I liked about the education system here is because it actually makes you think. It makes you good problem solvers. Yeah. Where in India, we memorize everything. For the exams, you just whole memorize. I remember English was my third or fourth language. I had to read Hamlet. I didn't understand what Hamlet was, but I memorized the whole Hamlet for the exam.
Wow!
So that's the kind of not whole. I made that an exaggeration. Whatever the pieces that I needed to, but we memorized everything. Yeah. When I came to U.S., it was so refreshing that I didn't have to memorize anything. I didn't have to memorize definitions and formulas. I needed to know how to apply them. Yeah. I needed to think about them, how to connect the dots, and so. U.S. education tend to make you more innovative. You ask a lot of questions, deep questions. You got to figure out why things work the way they do and how you can improve them. Versus you in some other countries, certainly speak for my education in India. It was prove theorems. We memorize everything. So it's very different. I think that's. I really think our education system is our competitive advantage in this country. And I still think people talk about, it's gotten weaker. I beg to differ. I think we have one of the finest education system in the world. And that's why we have more Nobel Prize winners than any country in the world. I think our education system works. It makes people creative. It makes people innovative. It makes people think, students think. So I give exams. If they don't understand what they're doing, they're simply not going to pass my exams.
Right.
They can't memorize. I give open book exams. They can have access to internet, textbooks, notes, and yet students will tell you that how rough that 4.5 hours is.
Yeah, I'm sure that's true. Our whole producing team is very tired of hearing about me talking about David Epstein's book Range, which the quote for this episode is from that. But in that book, David Epstein talks about the urge to enforce quick learning rather than deep learning. And he makes the case for being comfortable in the stage of education where you don't know yet, and not feeling the need to solve the problem quickly, but instead being comfortable in the not knowing and thinking of different ways to solve the problem.
Correct. Yeah.
And that seems like
that's really, I think you make students to think that there's not just one way to do this.
Right.
What are the multiple ways you can approach the same problem, and then pick the one that works the best for you, the situation that you're in. So, making them to think, pushing them to think, and forcing them to think. It helps them to their creative energy flows, and then they learn quickly and they will remember. So in my classes, nobody needs to memorize any definition, no formulas, and nothing.
Right.
And I give them the books, whatever they access, whatever they want to look at, do the exams. But yet, I push them, and I find a way to push them, make them think. Yeah.
Right. Well, and one of the most important things that the MBA program taught me, and I would say this showed up in our career core curriculum as much as anywhere, was the idea of imposing structure where it hasn't previously existed. You take a case and it's open world. What do you want to do here? You can do anything. And then you have to decide, okay, these are the assumptions that I'm going to make in order to solve this problem. And you can attack the problem from any one of, 50 different perspectives, 100 different perspectives, more than that, I'm sure. But frequently in case interviews, for example, the interviewer wants to hear the way you think about the problem.
Correct, yeah.
And, can you take a set of assumptions, your assumptions and my assumptions may be different, but we can both get to a place that is maybe similar, maybe not the same. But so much of it is just about I think it goes back to comfort in the, in the chaos, which is something I'm not.
A lot of times there are no right and wrong answers.
Yeah.
There aren't. In the businesses, I think, you make choices intelligently given the circumstances that you're on. So it's a lot of times, it's not, but in education, we tend to look at things right and wrong, but that's why the cases are is one of the better education tools, because there are no right and wrong answers. So you're trying to identify, solutions given the set of constraints that you have,
right?
That may work, mostly, or may not work.
Right. And it often comes back to, as you said, it's not necessarily right or wrong, but are the assumptions insightful? Are the logical steps reasonable? And oftentimes you can get to an answer that everybody sort of feels like, I don't know if that answer is necessarily the right one, but the process makes so much sense that we'll follow you into the first step of that process anyway, and then we can figure out where to go from there.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. Your thinking process is really important. Yes.
So we talked about some funny stories. Let's go the other way. Let's talk about impact. Let's talk about this. What is a place where you felt a class of yours or something else that happened here really had a positive impact on someone's life?
I don't know. You have to ask my students. It's I like to believe that in a small way I made a difference in their career, in their education. But I do have one story, because he tells me this all the time. I had a MBA student. He was, I think it was 2000 or 2001. Typically MBA students, we expect them to have work experience, right? 4, 5, 6 years. But occasionally, we pick a few students with no work experience. And he's one of them we picked. He was an agribusiness. A fantastic student. GMAT was 700 plus. So, but had no work experience. So he turned out to be one of the finest MBA students I've taught in my career. And he also became my graduate assistant.
Oh.
So, but he wanted to go to Wall Street as an investment banker. And going from College Station, going to Wall Street as an investment banker, the likelihood is pretty, very small, not because our students are not capable, because they have all these Ivies right there in the New York City. So it's always a challenge for us to place students in Wall Street. And we have over the years, but it's a challenge. But he wanted to work, that was his goal, work in Wall Street.
Right.
He was from Abilene. He had a wicked Abilene accent. He wore cowboy, hats and nice. But so he said, Dr. Shetty, I want to go to Wall Street. And I said, well, if that's what you want to do, then you need to, work really hard to getting there. At that time, CFA was not very popular. CFA is quite popular now. So I encouraged him to take CFA. I got him the material. I said, why don't you take CFA 1? He did. He was a great student. And he went on Aggies on Wall Street trip. And he was on the phone talking to people all the time while other students are having fun. Long story short, he got an offer from UBS. He worked for UBS. I had an opportunity to meet with some of his colleagues later at UBS, and they thought the world of him. He was very, very successful at UBS. From there, he went to Merrill Lynch, Bank of America, had a big shot there.
Sure.
He came he moved back to Texas. They all moved back to Texas after Wall Street. He came with his wife and 3 kids to meet me about last year this time. Yeah. We had lunch together.
Sure.
But always in every gathering he went, when he met all former MBA students, he would come and speak to them and always said, Dr. Shetty was responsible for me going to Wall Street. So I always took pride in that in a small way. I had little to do with in going to Wall Street. So we have stories like that. At the end of the day, students do it. We don't do it. We may help them a little bit, mentor them a little bit. But that was one. He writes to me all the time. He said, he reminds me that I was influential in him going to Wall Street, even with this cowboy hat. Yeah.
Sometimes Wall Street needs a cowboy hat.
Yeah, of course.
Rapid fire. What do you consider your most valuable failure?
After I got my master's in U.S., I got a master's in operations research. I really wanted to work. And I had family responsibilities. I wanted to get a job.
Yeah.
I interviewed a couple of places. I didn't get an offer.
Yeah.
Then I continued on my PhD.
Okay.
That was a failure, but I'm glad I didn't get a job offer because, as a PhD, I had such a fabulous career. I mean, I had such a fantastic career at Texas A&M. So, not getting that job offer was a good thing for me. If I had gotten that job offer, people were still sitting there somewhere doing it. Yeah.
What do you think is people's biggest misconception of you?
People think I'm not very approachable. That when they first meet me and they say, "Well, who's this guy?" Not approachable. Think I'm a little bit arrogant, and I come across that way. Maybe I do. I don't know. But once they get to know me, and they ask one, I said, "We thought of you as not approachable. You're all right." So no. I think the first impression I must give to people is students that just some hard professor.
If you could have anyone as a mentor for one day, who would it be?
Mentor for one day, I would say President Robert Gates or Secretary Gates. Yeah, I worked with him a little bit when I was in that office, Dr. Mahajan's office.
Right.
He was the president. He was one of the greatest presidents of Texas A&M University. A man of integrity, talent, intelligence. He's just a good man. He's a very decent man. I liked. I have a small interaction with him, and I was such admiration for him. So, hands down, I would love to have a day with him. Wherever he is now. I think he's in Seattle.
Okay. Yeah, that would be really something. It's an answer we've gotten before. Dr. Gates is very well thought of.
Yeah, he's wonderful. Yeah.
So if you could have a billboard somewhere with anything on it, what would it say?
Be thoughtful and kind. I think that's really important. It's important as a human being, but it's also make good business sense to me. If you're thoughtful and kind, people like to work with you. You become a good team player. Yeah. People are loyal to you. And people who are thoughtful and kind, they tend to be less stressed. Less stressed people make good employees.
Yeah.
Good employees make more money. So there's an economic reason to be thoughtful and kind too. But I think it brings you peace in your life. That just being kind of nice to people and be kind to people around you. Yeah.
Great thought. What advice would you give yourself exactly 5 years ago?
Try to be a bit more tactful about myself. I am not a very tactful person. In fact, I work with the dean's office. I work with 3 deans, and one of the advice I always get from them is, be a little tactful. But I tend to speak my mind all the time. I've always been that way. Yeah. I don't know if it's too late for me to change, but there are instances where I wish I was more tactful, but I was not.
Yeah.
I don't know even I'm working on it. But something that I should learn to be a bit more kind of know when to say what. But never learned that.
Yeah. I have trouble with that sometimes too. What is your fondest memory of Texas A&M?
Oh gosh, I have so many. Can I have 2?
Sure.
The first one is when I became American citizen in 1992. I've been a U.S. citizen for 28 years.
Yeah. And
I'll tell you why that was so important, because I had a pretty rough road to becoming a citizen. My application was denied multiple times. Reasons unknown to us. In fact, Immigration Naturalization Service actually gave me what's known as a voluntary departure note, leave the country. On March 27, 1987, they wanted me and my wife to leave the country because my application was denied. And Mays Business School, Texas A&M worked really, really hard. They really fought for me to keep in this country. Yeah. I mean, they sought help from Senator Graham. Senator Graham's office helped quite a bit. They marshaled all the clout. In fact, there was an instance where they had to apply to reverse the decision by the Dallas office, by the Washington, D.C. So applied Washington, D.C. to reverse the administrative law judges reversed the decision. So it was a really rough, long road. So it was, becoming a citizen after all that was, of course, it's very special for me and my family. So
how did that make you feel? Like the way that the university went to bat for you?
They did. I mean, that's why, that's why I'm so dedicated. I'm so much in love with this institution. I have so much admiration for the institution because it's easy for them to say, "Hey, we can find somebody else, right? Bala is somebody else." But they didn't do that. They really fought very hard. That's why that's why I'm here for 35 years, and that kind of so much loyalty to the institution because they fought for me. They had my back when I needed them the most. So it's that's Texas A&M for you, really. So Mays Business School, my then Dean Mobley, man, he worked really hard. He called Senator Graham's office and yelled at them. But it was a long, difficult road. But that was to be an American citizen. Even my children who were born here, people who are born here, they don't really quite get it. Yeah. Right? Because those of us come from another country where we really want to make a life here, that is probably one of the most important event in our life, to be an American citizen. So it was pretty fantastic. And I'm grateful for the institution. They made it happen. That's why I'm so sold on Texas A&M. So the second one is a fun one that I got to watch Aggies beat LSU on 7 overtime in 2018. Yeah. And I was at the Board of Regents box. So I got to watch Aggies beat LSU in 7 overtime.
Yeah.
Sitting next to the chairman of the Board of Regents, Charles Schwartz, and I never forget that. It was one of the funnest things that I have done during my time at Texas A&M. Yeah.
Funny story about that. I was at that game as well.
Were you?
And we were sitting. My family has pretty good seats, and we were at the game, and my dad, Steve Wiggins, we're as when it gets toward the end of the game, we're the ones who are like ready to like cut, like we stay as late as we can, but then we're ready to cut as soon as the game like is over. We're out. Like we'll make mad speed to the parking lot and then get, and usually you can save yourself an hour in traffic if you cut just a little bit before the game's over. So after the interception, we left.
Okay.
And I was listening to the stadium. I was listening to the PA as we were walking, and I said, I think they're reviewing the play. Something happened. I think they're reviewing the play. And so and then we hear a cheer go up from the stadium, and it turns out the game's not over yet. We're going to keep playing. And then, so we're in the car on the way home, and it was this kind of a life event for a lot of fans.
Yeah, it was. We had the same thing because I was with a former student of mine for Halliburton, Chris and I. So we left. We went to the elevator.
Oh, okay.
The elevator was full.
Yeah.
So we waited for the next one. And that's when they got an extra second on the clock. Then we came back and I said, wait a minute. So we came back and sat in our seats, and the rest was history. And that was the most phenomenal thing I've seen in my time at Texas A&M. But yeah. It
was something that I was so thrilled to have been a part of after the fact. But while it was going on, I remember thinking, it was a miserable experience for me, to be honest, because I was just thinking, I've seen this 100 times. I've seen this 100 times.
You thought you were going to lose.
I know how this is going to end. And I was wrong. I was so happy to be wrong.
Yeah. But it could have gone either way, but I'm glad it went our way.
Sure. That's what sports is about. Yeah. We end each session with Good Bull. Do you have anyone you would like to send Good Bull?
Oh, God, I have my wife. We've been married for 35 years.
Yeah.
She's been a phenomenal friend, a spouse for me, and a great mom for my 2 kids. She was a faculty in the management department. She taught corporate strategy. I'm fortunate to have had her in my life for 35 years. Much gratitude to her because, I think arguably she's the smartest person in my family, and we're a family of pretty smart people.
Yeah.
But she made the sacrifices like most smart women do, made the sacrifices too, so I could have a career and my children would have a great career. So credit goes to her. And of course, I have, this past 2 years, I have taught maybe over 50 veterans and active duty military folks. And I consider that the greatest honor of my life. I watched these young men and women come back from, deployment, transition to, academic life and raise a family. And I have no idea how they do it, but I can tell you that what inspiration they are for all of us. So I've had many, many veterans in active duty in my life. I've taught so many of them, but I'm in awe with these young men and women. So hats off to them. I appreciate what they do, what they've done for us.
Absolutely. Dr. Shetty, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Yeah, you make a good host here.
I appreciate that. That's very kind.
Thank you for watching. We appreciate your support. Drop us a like below and feel free to leave a comment if you wish. We appreciate positivity and constructive feedback. Don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date on our latest episodes and bonus content. You can also take us on the road using your favorite podcast listening app. We have those linked below. If you'd like to know more about Mays Business School or our guests, Visit mays.tamu.edu/podcasts. Talk with you soon.